How's everyone doing today? It's your boy JJ Domination, and today we are going to be resuming our series that we started like 2 episodes ago. Yeah, the teams to consider using for Madden 20 NFL franchise mode. So here we are. Last time, and by the way, I say this in every video, these aren't my rosters, someone made these, but for the first team, we talked about the Cincinnati Bengals, alright, and the second team, we talked about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So you already know, for the third team, we're talking about the Arizona Cardinals, and we're just going to get right into it. So you got the quarterback position right here. Kyler Murray, a very polarizing prospect coming out of Oklahoma, the second quarterback from Oklahoma in the last 2 years, of course, to be taken number 1 overall. Last year, of course, was Baker Mayfield, who was taken number 1 overall, and both of them were Heisman Trophy winning quarterbacks. So I'm very intrigued to see what this man does in the NFL. Of course, people are already hating on him and kind of counting him out, and I don't really understand why. I mean, yeah, I get it, he's 5'10", whatever. I mean, I'm pretty sure this offense that he's in, he's going to be playing a lot out of the shotgun formation, so it really doesn't even matter, truth be told, but whatever, I guess. But people are basically hating on Kyler Murray, I guess because of the whole Josh Rosen situation. You're targeting the wrong person with all your hate. If you're going to be mad or upset at someone, it should be the organization for moving off of Josh Rosen 1 year after being drafted. And truth be told, just based on what we've seen from Josh Rosen, he doesn't really look that good. And, in my opinion, I think he could be an above average to borderline elite quarterback. I think that would be my ceiling for him. But right now, he just doesn't look the part. Last season, he was garbage. And he was playing behind one of the worst offensive lines in football. And it showed because he really can't move around in the pocket that much. And, against the blitz, he was one of the worst quarterbacks. And he's going to be playing with the Miami Dolphins, and their offensive line isn't that much better. But still, best of luck to both of these guys. I don't think you should be picking sides or hating on any of these quarterbacks. I'm really just rooting for both. I'm rooting for the league because I think they both can be good. And then you have Brett Hundley, who, as a Packer fan, I know way too much about. He's good for, if you need him to play for, 2 weeks. I think he's exceptional. But he is not a good quarterback. He's just not good, period. Eventually I got on the bandwagon of, let's give Brett Hundley a chance, even though, let's be honest. I mean, as a fan, of course, you're going to be optimistic. You're going to have faith in whatever happens. And yeah, Brett Hundley, he's had some good performances, but he's also had a lot of shitty performances. He's also had games where he's had more rushing yards than passing yards. And there are games where he doesn't even finish with 100 yards in either category. So Brett Hundley is just not that good of a quarterback. And not a guy that I would want to start, but a guy that, if a quarterback's missing a week or two, I don't really mind throwing him out there. This Chad guy, I don't really know much about. Then we get to the running back room. Of course, people, are going to say their shit on David Johnson. But he's already talking his shit. He's saying he's the best running back in football. And even though I don't agree with that statement, there was a point 2 seasons ago, same thing with Le'Veon Bell, there was a discussion for who was the best running back in football. And Le'Veon Bell, David Johnson, those were the 2 names that always came up in that discussion. And I think this season, both running backs are going to remind the NFL landscape. They're going to remind the NFL world, hey, we still got it, man. We're not slowing down anytime soon. And I think David Johnson's going to have a good year. I just have that feeling. Chase Edmonds and TJ Logan, they're pretty good comparable running backs, man. I like them both in small doses, especially TJ Logan. He had some big plays last season. Same thing with Edmonds, too. I think he had a 2-touchdown game against the Packers. Right here, Derek Coleman, pretty solid fullback, but fullbacks aren't really that valuable, unfortunately. Then we get to the wide receiver room. This is a very young wide receiver room, but of course we got to start off with the old man, Larry Fitzgerald, who's entering year 15. He has been a great wide receiver throughout his career. Just one of the best receivers that's ever played. Definitely top 5, top 7, depending on who you ask. This man literally has more career tackles then drops. He has the best hands in the NFL, and it's not even close, in my opinion. But they've drafted 3 rookies this past season. They have Andy Isabella, who, of course, everyone remembers from watching college football this past season as the dude who had the 15-catch game against Georgia. Looking outside of that game, he actually has pretty good tape overall. A pretty good burner as well. He has deep threat ability, but I think he'll probably play in the slot, and I think he'll, excel as a slot receiver. I think he'll be pretty good. Especially in this offense, man, which we don't really know a whole lot about unless you watch Texas Tech play, which I'm going to be honest, I don't really watch a whole lot of Texas Tech, but I'll definitely go back and try to watch some and see if any of that will be implemented in this offense with Cliff Kingsbury, which I imagine it would be. And then Akeem Butler, a different type of receiver from Andy Isabella. He's a 6'6" monster. He's a jump ball receiver. But my only concern with him is he has a drop issue. Very inconsistent with catching the football. One play, you see him snagging over 2 defenders and a highly contested jump ball. And then the next play, he's dropping a wide open drag route. And it just doesn't make sense. He's just a little inconsistent. We've seen some wide receivers fix their inconsistencies with drops like Devontae Adams, but then there are still receivers, out there who still struggle with the drops a little bit. But it is what it is, man. Hopefully for Akeem Butler, he can get that fixed. And then the third rookie wide receiver is Keyshawn Johnson, a later round pick, but from Fresno State, he actually had some pretty good tape as well. Not too bad, but you got to think this was a pretty deep class for receiver. He wasn't in my top 15, so, it is what it is. Then you also have Christian Kirk, who is entering his second season. Kind of turned it around later in the year, like the second half of the year he started to play better. It was just a slow start for this team in general. And then you have an intriguing option right here in Kevin White. So he's basically been a bust up to this point in his career, which is sad to say, man, because this dude coming out actually had a lot of talent. It was between him and Amari Cooper. Amari Cooper, of course, was the more well-known guy because he played at Alabama, but Kevin White came from a really good offense and had mad skill. So it really came down to those two. As you see, Amari Cooper is eligible for a contract extension, or he's up for a new contract after this year, and he's with the second team just like Kevin White. But Amari Cooper has a Pro Bowl under his belt, whereas Kevin White, I think in his NFL career, doesn't even have 12 catches. So 2 very different careers from 2 receivers that were compared, or, basically, head-to-head with each other in the draft of who's the best receiver. But for Kevin White, this could be an intriguing second chance. He comes in as the second most experienced receiver on this squad, which is crazy because he's entering his 5th NFL season. Injuries have kind of derailed his career. Hopefully, with a second chance, he'll be able to turn it around. But with 3 rookies coming in and, Larry Fitzgerald still in here, some decent second-year players as well, it's going to be kind of hard for him to really, find his footing. Hopefully he just shows out and separates himself from the pack. Then you have Chad Williams, who was a starter last year. He's going to be entering year number 3. He's actually been pretty decent in his career. Nothing too special. And then these 2 guys, Trent, Sherfield, I don't really know a whole lot about, but Pharaoh Cooper, mainly a return man. So yeah, very interested in this receiving core. I wonder who's going to emerge and separate themselves, because you have a lot of intriguing options at wide receiver. At tight end, at the beginning of the free agency period, at the beginning of the offseason, towards the end of the season, I guess you could say, for the Cardinals, this tight end room wasn't really that good, and now it has gotten better. So Charles Clay comes in here. He's been battling some injuries the last couple of seasons, but a pretty productive tight end when he's on. And then you have Max Williams. He's a pretty good blocker, underrated hands, and to me, he's just one of those underrated tight ends. Doesn't get enough love in the NFL community. He is actually pretty decent. Ricky Seals-Jones, who kind of bursted onto the scene his rookie season, and then last year was decent. And then Caleb Wilson, Mr. Irrelevant in this past draft. A pretty good prospect, in my opinion. Should have been drafted about 2 rounds earlier, maybe even 3 rounds earlier, considering, the drop-off at tight end. But it is what it is. it happens, I guess. Daryl Daniels, a pretty decent option as well at tight end. They have a deep tight end room. And then Aaron Brewer, more of a long snapper right there at tight end. So this tight end room's pretty good. But the interesting thing is Cliff Kingsbury didn't use tight ends in his offense at Texas Tech. They didn't even have one on the roster, so it'll be interesting to see what tight ends will look like in this offense. But speaking of offense, we're going to get to the offensive line right here. DJ Humphries, a pretty solid left tackle, nothing too crazy, nothing too special, but he's been straight. He's been solid his entire career. Nothing really spectacular to say. He's just a decent, solid starting left tackle. And then you have Max Garcia behind them, a former guard who I guess is moving to tackle, I guess. Max Garcia has never really been a good player, so I don't really have much to say about that. And then Corey Cunningham, I don't know a whole lot about. And then you have J.R. Sweezy right here, just a veteran. He's, been around with Tampa Bay and Seattle. He's just been a really good player, a really consistent guard, I guess you can say. So that's always good. So he's a solid pair of hands to have at guard. This Jeremy guy I don't know a whole lot about. And then Reese or whatever, he was on a practice squad. So we'll see what he looks like. And then we get to the center position. Some low-end starting centers right here. A.Q. Shipley, kind of a low-end starter. But then you have Lamont Galliard from Georgia, who's a pretty good run blocker. The pass blocking leaves more to be desired. And then you have Mason Cole, who was a rookie last season. I believe he did end up getting some playing time. And then Daniel Munyer. I haven't really seen him play, so I can't really comment. But the center position, not really the strongest. But then right here you got Justin Pugh, who had a down season last year. But this year, hopefully we will see him kind of emerge and play better, man. Because he was pretty solid for the New York Giants. And the Giants were crazy for letting him go at the time. But obviously with the Giants, they got Kevin Zeitler. So everything's looking up for him. But Justin Pugh hasn't really been that good since he's left. Hopefully he can kind of reassert himself. And then Colby Gossett, a decent backup, nothing too crazy. And then right here, Marcus Gilbert, of course, they recently traded for. They gave up a 6th-round pick to do so in next year's draft, I believe. So Marcus Gilbert's here, a pretty good starting right tackle in the league. Of course, he is entering his age 31 season. So yeah, a little bit of a drop-off probably coming. Maybe not. We'll see how he plays. And then you have Joe Barksdale, who's a good backup. Joshua Miles from Morgan State, one of their late-round draft picks. Maybe there's something there. Maybe you can develop him. There's some potential there. And then Will Holden, I don't know a whole lot about. Now we get to the defense. Of course, they're running a 3-4 defense. A little intrigued to see what the defense does because the offense is getting talked about so much. We'll see what the defense can do. But we'll start here with Terrell McLean. Pretty much a decent fringe starter, decent, pretty good depth type of defensive end, and a 3-4. We've seen him bounce around the last few years between Washington, Dallas. Now, I don't think he played for Dallas. I think that was Stacy McGee or someone else. I don't know. But he's bounced around between Washington and Atlanta most recently. Now he's here in Arizona, which is dope. Darius Philon, of course, he played for the Los Angeles Chargers. He was pretty solid, man. He was just like a decent player for them, kind of an underrated player for them. Didn't really get a whole lot of opportunities. Maybe here he breaks through and he starts over Terrell. And then Zach Moore, decent depth guy, nothing much really to say. And then right here you have Robert Kimdichie. A lot of people were high on him coming out. Me, I was kind of in between. I didn't really think he'd be a superstar I didn't think he'd be like an all-pro caliber player, but I also didn't think he'd be a scrub either. I thought he'd be just a solid starter in the league for years to come. He's kind of had his inconsistencies, man. Maybe he's just a late bloomer, but he is entering his 4th season. Hopefully he can make the most of it. He's a pretty solid player, and he's a really good player in college, so I hope he can turn it around. And then Vincent Valentine right here, moving to a different scheme. He was a former defensive tackle, now playing right end. Decent depth guy. Michael Dodge from Temple. You know, he's a pretty good athlete. It's weird because I don't know if he fits a 3-4 that well, and I don't really know a whole lot about Temple, so maybe they do run a 3-4 and I just don't know. But it'll be interesting to see how he's used and if he's used. And then you have Vontarius Dora. So Dora the Explorer, huh? I don't know much about Vontarius, though. And then a defensive tackle. It's a decent room. I mean, you got Corey Peters and Rodney Gunter. Those are really the only two names to speak of. Outside of that, man, I really don't know any of these guys. So I'm just going to keep it real. At linebacker, or your pass rushers, I should say, you have Terrell Suggs and you have Brooks Reed. I mean, those are two good veteran pass rushers to have on your team. Outside of that, I don't know any of those guys. At middle linebacker, you have Jordan Hicks and Hassan Reddick. Hey, that's a solid combination. Jordan Hicks, a pretty good coverage linebacker in his own right. He doesn't get talked about enough. A lot of it has to do with his injury history. But when he's on the field, he's a pretty good coverage guy. And then you look at Hassan Reddick, you know, just a Swiss Army knife, a great athlete, can play all over the field, which I like about him. I like guys that are versatile and can do a whole lot. Then you have Josh Bynes, who at this point of his career is more of a run-stopping linebacker. He's not fast. He's fallen off as an athlete, but athletically, I should say, but he's still on an NFL roster. And then you have Joe Walker, who is more of a special teamer. And then out your right outside linebacker position, you have Chandler Jones here, who, you know, he's getting up there in age, but he's still giving you that production. And then you got Zach Allen from Boston College, who I think is going to be a pretty solid player for this team in the future. We'll see what he does his rookie season. And then Ian Sayu, I don't really know a whole much about, so I'm not going to say. And then at corner, you know, Patrick Peterson, he's suspended for like the first 6 games of the season because of a PED violation. Yeah, what a way to start your year off. Woo. That sucks, man. I feel bad for him. And he is getting up there in age as well. Same thing with Robert Alford, who was a pretty solid player throughout his career with the Atlanta Falcons. I know Falcons fans will tell you more about him, but, you know, from what I've seen, he was pretty much a solid player. A little bit overly aggressive at times, but of course, most memorable moment, the pick 6 in the Super Bowl against the GOAT, Tom Brady. I mean, let's face it, Tom Brady is pretty much at this point the greatest of all time. I mean, it hurts me to say it, but he is. Now that that's out there, Byron Murphy, you know, a nice rookie corner they drafted from Washington. I'm very excited about him. You know, he was probably my second best corner on, you know, my board or whatever, and he was like, you know, taken in the second round. He was the second corner taken, so yeah, good continuity there. And then you got Tremaine Brock, who is basically a veteran. You know, I could have sworn he retired. Maybe I'm just tripping. Brandon Williams, he's decent. Nothing much there. And these two guys I don't know much about. Free safety, we got Budda Baker, who I think is probably going to be playing nickel corner in the absence of Patrick Peterson, because he was a slot corner / special teamer last year. Pretty good in both roles. But this team did draft Deontay Thompson, who before the combine process, before college football season ended, or actually no, before the NFL season ended, he was kind of viewed as a first-round pick, like a universally regarded first-round pick. And then people started watching that, you know, playoff tape, and it really wasn't that good, to be honest. And in my opinion, Deontay Thompson was slightly overrated to begin with. I never really viewed him as that first round pick at safety. I get it, he played at Alabama, but that doesn't mean, you know, that you're going to work out, you're going to be successful. It doesn't mean you're going to be a first round pick just because you were a good player at Alabama. But he did go in the 5th round, and because he went in the 5th round, that is great value for a 5th round pick. But if you would have been a first round pick, you know, I wouldn't have really rocked with it, but I would have kind of understood it. And then you have Josh Shaw. I don't really know much about him, so I don't care. Then you got DJ Swearinger, one of the, I'm not going to say underrated, but kind of underappreciated league-wide at strong safety. He was pretty good for the Washington Redskins and the Houston Texans in his career. And he's here now with the Arizona Cardinals, and I'm excited to see what he can do next season. So have at it. And then Rudy Ford, more of a special teamer at kicker. You got Zane Gonzalez at punter. You got Andy Lee. But yeah, man, this is the roster. It's basically a brand new team. You know, the rebuild starts now. You got Cliff Kingsbury as the coach. You got Kyler Murray as your quarterback. You got like 3 rookie receivers. You know, like the offense, you know, it's going to be fun because they're going to have a very diverse playbook. If you've been watching the Madden streams, or if you've been watching like clips or highlights of like them showing a little bit of the plays and stuff, like they're going to have one of the most diverse playbooks in Madden. So you're going to have fun playing with this team. But it's going to be a pain in the ass to rebuild, I mean, in ways, because their defense, you know, there's some older guys there on the defense, and not every position will be easy to replace. On offense, yeah, you're young, but on defense, you're pretty old. Outside of, you know, your middle linebackers and your safeties, you're pretty old everywhere on that defense. So it's going to be a challenge. Offensively, I think you will be able to make the most of what you got. That's because the playbook is so diverse. You got Kyler Murray, who's a great athlete. So it'll be interesting to see. I am excited, though, to see what the Cardinals can do. But hopefully you guys have enjoyed, and peace out.